Hi, everybody. We're going to start section 2, biological and social hazards. So get out your notes and let's get started. Okay, 3/4 of infectious diseases or infectious disease deaths are caused by 5 types of diseases. Those would be respiratory infections, like the flu, AIDS, HIV, diarrheal diseases, things that cause diarrhea, tuberculosis, and malaria. So an infectious disease is caused by a pathogen. And what is a pathogen? A pathogen is any disease-causing agent, a bacteria, a virus. Anything that causes a disease is a pathogen. These pathogens are the cause of almost half of all deaths in developing nations. So what can we do to prevent disease? What can we do to prevent the transmission of diseases? Well, just like we're being told today with this COVID disease, the same thing is true with flu and many other types of diseases. Cover your mouth when you cough, wash your hands often, stay home from school when you're sick. All of these things will help prevent the spread of infectious diseases. And that's what we need to keep in mind. This has always been the case. According to the United Nations in 2018, nearly 1.1 million people died as a result of AIDS, which is caused by the HIV virus, human immunodeficiency virus. So currently there are about 37.9 million people that are infected with HIV globally. So this is still a huge issue in the human population. All right, so how do these pathogens spread through humans and those kinds of things? So diseases can be spread from human to human through body fluids, sexual intercourse, biting, inhaling contaminated air droplets, all of these things, blood, all of these things can transmit disease because the pathogen happens to be in that fluid, in blood, or in your spit, or in whatever fluids are in your body. Now, diseases can also be transmitted through water or food. If the water could be contaminated, maybe a water supply is too close to sewage, and that we can get cross-contamination with the sewage, and that can cause disease. Food can be contaminated with disease if it's not properly handled. Other organisms like vectors. Vectors are disease-carrying organisms. One of the biggest disease-causing, or one of the biggest vectors, is a mosquito. The mosquito carries a plasmodium virus that it causes malaria. So when a mosquito that is infected with this plasmodium bites you, it can give you malaria. Rats have fleas that contain the Yersinia pestis virus, which actually it's a bacteria that can cause the Black Plague. So that's another way that diseases can be transmitted. Now, emerging diseases are those diseases that appear in the human population for the first time or suddenly begin to spread rapidly. So this is the case where humans have little or no resistance, and there are no vaccines or drugs that will help a human to combat this disease. We've seen lots of them in our history, in human history. The H1N1 swine flu, the dengue fever, the West Nile virus, the E. coli viruses or bacterias, cholera, Ebola, diphtheria, all of these things that have caused worldwide disease in the human population because they come out for the first time, and when they first come out, humans don't have any resistance to those viruses or bacterias, and people get sick, and sometimes very sick, and sometimes they die from these things. Okay, so why do we have these emerging diseases, and how do they spread so rapidly through the human population? Well, one reason is we are a very mobile society, so we can go anywhere we want to go on this planet within a matter of hours. We can just hop on a plane and be halfway around the world within just a few hours and carry a disease. And when we get off of the plane, we can infect people in that area that where we land. There's also something called antibiotic resistance. The problem with this is that we are taking so many antibiotics that bacteria are becoming resistant. They're figuring out how to live through this antibiotic. So the more we prescribe antibiotics, the worse this problem is going to get. So this is why it's important to take the full prescription of antibiotics when you are prescribed. And it's also very important to take antibiotics when you have a bacterial infection. Antibiotics do not help viral infections. As we have been very well aware now these last few months, the virus that is going around right now is it's a virus, so we need a vaccination, not antibiotics do not work against those. So also we're changing our environment, and as we're cutting forests down, as we're going into places we've never gone before, there can be viruses and bacteria in those places that can cause us harm. So that's another problem. So how do we respond to these emerging diseases? Well, we have something called the World Health Organization, which you've heard about a lot. It's been in the news lately since this COVID pandemic has occurred. And the WHO monitors world health events. It coordinates international responses to these emerging diseases, and it hopefully helps to control the spread of a disease. For instance, the H1N1 virus you see here first appeared in Mexico in March of 2009. And by June, it had spread to over 70 countries, infected over 30,000 people. So it was declared a global pandemic level 6, the highest level. We are now in a global pandemic level 6, same as we were back in 2009. So in our country, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention respond to emerging diseases in the United States, and they are the ones that then coordinate efforts to combat the disease, to help people not get the disease. And so their plan for us was, for this particular COVID disease, to shut down schools, shut down restaurants and shopping centers, and all of the things that we had to do in March so that we could cut down the spread of the disease. It worked for a while. Now we're letting up on those quarantine measures, and we see now a new surge of people getting infected with the COVID disease. So the CDC is the group of people who put out these guidelines for us. Okay, so socially, what can we do to avoid these health hazards? Well, some are easier to avoid than others. So some of the things that we do ourselves. So we should live a healthy lifestyle. Don't smoke. Don't engage in behaviors that are hazardous to our health. Living near an old toxic waste site could cause harm because that the leftover toxic chemicals could be in the soil or in the water that we're drinking. Also, what can we do to combat this? We could be healthier, live healthy lifestyles, eat a good diet, exercise, get plenty of sleep, do the things that make our bodies healthy. And that can also help combat these diseases. So that is the end of section 2, and we will begin again next time with section 3, toxic substances in the environment.